Life can feel like a constant balancing act. Career, relationships, health, finance, faith, and somewhere in the middle of all of that, trying to pursue the dreams God placed on your heart. That's what Beyond Broken Hungry is all about. Here, we talk about real-life wellness. Not perfection, not extremes, but the everyday habits, mindset shifts, and faith that help us build strong, meaningful lives. Sometimes I'll be sharing conversations with wellness experts. Sometimes it will be just me reflecting on what I'm learning as a wife, entrepreneur, a woman of God, and someone trying to live well in every area of life. If you're figuring things out as you go, you're in the right place. Healthy living, real faith, full life. Welcome to Beyond Broken Hungry. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Beyond Broken Hungry podcast. I'm your host, Dara Carlisle, here with now Karli Nichols. I almost always have to think about it before I say it.
Me too. Even when you said it, I was like, oh gosh, it's so different. I still.
Wow, that's right. That's my new name.
Yep, that is me.
I love it. I love it. Well, for those of you who don't know, Karli is a dear, dear friend of mine. We knew a lot of this. Our history is so funny.
It's intertwined a little.
Yes. We won't get into the nitty-gritty. But we did have a mutual friend who literally was like, you two would be such good friends. I feel like you have such good energy. And I was watching our mutual friend's dog one weekend when Karli and someone who is not in the round or important anymore.
History.
They happened to move into the same apartment complex as me, and she saw me walking Sammy and was like, Dara? And I was like, Karli? Mind you, we had stalked each other on Instagram at this point.
Before I knew that you could see who was watching your stories, I was creeping because I had to know who she was, and she could see that I was doing that.
That's okay. I love it because I was doing it too. So it is all good. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming on. I know, like, in the years of me doing this, we had talked about it, and then I got burnt out from the podcast, took a break for a while. Now I'm back. You're the first guest of this, like, 2026 reboot series. And right now we're kind of in the middle of summer, right? So this is a summer wellness without messing out series that I kind of wanted to start for this summer to give, some tips and tricks and different perspectives of life so that people can feel motivated while it's the summertime and things slow down, but they kind of also pick up at the same time. And I feel like you are just somebody who really, truly embodies balance. And I don't think I've ever met anybody busier than me except for you. You're like the queen of side quests, and I love it. But yeah, so why don't you tell the audience a little bit more about you, and just give them some background, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me. And I love that we're both on that same wavelength of just always doing things, no matter what it is, we're always doing something. But yeah, I was a Division I lacrosse player. So from the time I was young, I just was always being very active, doing all the things, getting ready to play at a high level. I played in college, and then, I went on to become a teacher, got my master's. So I'm in elementary education. Currently, I'm teaching 6th grade, but I've taught from the range of 2nd through geometry. So kind of all over the place with that. I'm a yoga instructor. I coach lacrosse still. I just came home from a lacrosse camp. And yeah, I just got married, as we mentioned in the very beginning. And now we're expecting a baby. So yeah, a lot of things. A little baby girl.
A little baby girl. I love it. Yeah, we're super excited for you and Chris. I definitely can't wait to have another female to be empowered and like just athletic and a boss babe, just like her mama.
I hope so. I'm like out running, and I'm like, I hope that you love this as much as me.
Oh my gosh. Well, she's not gonna know any other world, so she'll be fine.
She'll be fine.
Yes. So with all that, like, one thing I've always admired about you is your perseverance, and that you've had to learn how to listen to your own body through a lot of different seasons. I know you struggle with like gluten and dairy, unofficial allergen, but kind of official. And then some just different stuff before you were trying to get pregnant and everything. And, now that it's better, you're like, hey, there's something, when we're done here that we need to we need to work on. So kicking into like wellness looking different in every season. If someone met you today with everything you've got going on, baby girl growing inside you and all, what would you describe your wellness journey?
Oh, it's a tough question because I just feel like it has changed so much, and sometimes you don't often like think about how it's changed. But I think from being a Division 1 athlete, whether it was my coaches, I don't think it was my coaches making me feel this way, but it's just kind of the environment that you push yourself to the most extreme at all times. And you think that that is what wellness is. That is what health is. That is what fitness is you're just constantly pushing your body to get to that highest level, which is still what I love. But I've now worked to find some balance because I know that it's not always the best thing. So I think from a young age, I just started finding kind of that intensity, and over the last like few years specifically, I've really had to hone in on like what does that mean, and does it always mean pushing yourself to the fullest extent, or is some movement better than no movement? And I think that, like, I know as cliche as this sounds, like movement is medicine is kind of like my life motto, because I just feel better when I am moving or doing something. It could be a walk, it could
Right.
be yoga, it could be anything. So I think that has kind of been how my mindset has shifted. And if someone saw me now, they still are going to describe me as probably a crazy person that does a lot of working out. But I think that if they really looked into like how I'm, looking at what I'm fueling my body with nowadays versus then when I thought I was being healthy, how I am adding active recovery days, things like that. So I'm not always pounding and just listening to my body more.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you do a lot of different forms of exercise as well. So it's not like you're like just doing high rocks or just training for a marathon or just doing yoga. Like you do, I know people listening are probably like, oh yeah, just like and she's
Yeah.
doing all three. But like having those king things combined, I think are really important because especially like I talk to Dr. Greg with Movement Driven all the time about how he always says that if you do yoga, you should lift weights. If you lift weights, you should do yoga. And there should just be this balance of that intensity, but also the recovery and then like your absolute rest. And I think you do a really good job at balancing all three of those things.
And that's kind of what I've really had to work on. Like, it's funny because when I was in college, my mom tried so hard to get me to do yoga. And I'd be like, I can't go to these yoga classes. That 80-year-old woman's doing a headstand and I can't even touch my kneecaps. Like, I can't do this. And I was so competitive that I couldn't let go and just be in that space. And then when I graduated college and I was done being a lacrosse player, and that was no longer my identity, no one cared that I played lacrosse anymore. It wasn't like, oh, you're the lacrosse goalie, or, no one cared anymore. And I had to figure out like, what else am I good at, or what else can I do,
Right.
or how can I relax? And I tried some yoga and I was like, wow, I really like this. And then I told my mom, and then I ended up going to yoga teacher training. And my mom is always to this day, so like, I cannot believe that you teach yoga and that it's like a good class and calming, because if I were to know you at 18, you like couldn't do that. And so it really shifted. That started the shift of like finding other things. And I just like any type of movement. So I will try all the different things. Like, I've done CrossFit, I've done marathon, I've done high rocks, I've done, and just finding the ones that feel best in my body, I think is important. And then I've had back surgery. So like that really also played a part into like, and that was like 6 years ago. It was right before COVID because I was able to get my surgery and then we went into lockdown. So it was like the November
Right.
before. And getting back surgery really put things into perspective for me about balance, because I did not realize how, I guess, like, I mean, this sounds stupid, but how much you use your core in just like everything that you do. And I was like, but I got back surgery. Why can I not even walk? And they were like, pretty much a knife went through your core because your back is your core. And I was like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And I
Yeah,
had
that's right.
to, yep, that tracks. Yep. And so I had to really figure out, what does this look like? I can't, overhead lift super heavy anymore because my back cannot handle that. It might be okay in the moment, but 2 days later, I won't be able to function correctly. So finding the movement that feels best, I think, has been a big shift.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really hard, I think, for a lot of people to get to that point because like they think that, oh, well, I can't do this, so I might as well not do anything at all. Instead of thinking like, hey, I am not able to do this. I'm in a lot of pain. This hurts. what can I do instead of this to still keep me in like a healthy routine and a healthy mindset and stuff like that.
Yeah, the all or nothing mentality was something I really had to break through, I think, again, from just like my background
Mhm.
of growing up in that world. And when I first was getting back into things, I actually, one of my other good friends, Katie Bolt, is a trainer, and I went to her one on one and got training one on one to be like, help me figure out like what what movement feels good and like what weight is appropriate, like can I move up in weight. And it took a while to be able to like do the things that I used to be able to do, but I was happier with movement than no movement. And so even on the days where I would get frustrated with myself, she would remind me like, "Hey, 2 months ago you couldn't do this." Like those kind of things. And I think knowing that there's like you're getting better, and I always knock on wood whenever I talk about my back, but like I'm able to do things now. I ran a marathon after having back surgery, things like that. I wouldn't suggest that for everyone. So I'm not saying that. Don't take my word on that. But I think just like finding different ways and being okay with slow growth sometimes is better
Mhm.
than nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, a lot of us spend time fighting our bodies instead of like trying to learn them or learn from them or navigate whatever new thing we're going through now. And like I've said, I think that you've done like a really good job. Like you are one of the people that I look to when like I start to feel like a certain way because I'm like, and I know that there's obviously your struggles that you have internally as well. It's not just
Yeah.
the highlight reel that you're seeing, but like it really is like motivating to see like every like kind of adversity that you've gone through since we've known each other, and that you're just kind of like, okay, well, pivot, like, all right, we can't do this, I'm a little sad now, I'm gonna figure it out, like, let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. And I think like you said, I mean, I don't want people listening to this to think like, oh, she's just able to easily switch around. That is not the case. Like I've definitely been like in some bad headspaces when it comes to balance. And it used to be like, I've got to work out hard every single day. And then that got taken away from me. And I felt a loss for like, what do I do now? And it's kind of been a struggle. And I'm very lucky that I grew up in a household where like my mom loves movement as well. So I know that movement, and they work in the both my parents work in the health field. So I know that like movement is a positive thing, but also like they've had tried to help me to not be that my dad calls me a blockhead sometimes, and listen to my body and do what it needs. And sometimes that means rest and recovery. And something that I really would say in the last like 2 years that I've really focused on is my sleep. I've always loved sleep, but I've sometimes like not given myself, I guess, as much as I should get, and would just kind of push through when I'm really tired and be like, I still have to work out, those kind of things. I'm very much so like more regimen about making sure I'm sleeping, trying to get to bed by this time because I'm just not productive either I'm not
Yeah.
sleeping. So
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, like literally, if you're not getting enough sleep, like your body's not recovering. So like you're never catching up with everything that you're doing. And that's something that I have been working on like a lot lately. And like I have made it like a goal to get 7 hours of sleep. And with
yep.
PCOS, like I really struggle with insomnia. That's like one of the several things that I do with it. But one of them being insomnia. And like just the other night, like I literally was trying to go to bed and tossed and turned for hours. And it was like one of those nights where I was physically in bed for like 8 hours, but I felt like my eyes were closed and like I wasn't actually sleeping. Like I felt
Yeah.
very aware of every moment of that 8 hours,
Yeah.
It's not as quality as like the 7 hours that I might get sometimes where it's way deeper or I reach a deeper sleep. But I definitely noticed from me focusing on that versus, college and post college where you just think, part like work hard, play hard. So it's
Yeah.
like, oh, 4 hours of sleep is fine. Like I
Yeah. It's
can,
fine.
I
I can
can
keep
go.
going.
Yeah, yeah, it's absolutely crazy. So I wanted to shift a little bit, if it's okay, and if not, we can cut this part out. But with your being diagnosed with Hashimoto's, like
Yeah.
before your wedding and before the pregnancy, So that was like right before your all's wedding, right? Like last
Yeah,
summer.
so it was last summer that I finally got diagnosed. I hadn't been feeling well. So I'm someone who's very in tune with their body. Like I could never explain what wasn't feeling well. Um, but I always knew something was off. And like my mom
Mhm.
says that's been me since even when I was little. And I just knew something was wrong. The doctors were just there's like you kept getting the basic blood work that don't show anything and they're like, you're healthy, you're
Mhm.
fine. And from the outside, I look healthy and fine. And, it was getting to the point where I was teaching and I was so exhausted that I would sit in my room during a planning period and cry because I didn't want to walk to the front office to pick something up because I was so
Mhm.
tired. And everyone kept being like, oh, you're a teacher. You're just teacher tired. And I'm like, this is not just
Right.
teacher tired. Like I know what that is. And I know that I've been more tired from teaching before, but this is different. Like I'm a healthy, quote unquote, healthy person that's crying, walking to the front office. And so from that point forward, I kind of just knew I needed to do something different. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a year off from teaching. Maybe it is teacher tired, like everyone is saying. So I took a 1 year. Thank the Lord for my wonderful now husband who was like, yes, do it. You need this break. So I took a year off. I still taught at like a college and not children. And then did some other things, but then I was still feeling exhausted. And I was like, okay, this isn't it. Like something's still wrong. And so I went back to a doctor, switched doctors. And at this point, like I felt like my neck was swollen and I couldn't explain that. I was like, I don't know what this is, but something is wrong. And this doctor finally believed me and did deeper labs and was able to find that I had antibodies for Hashimoto. Um, and then it kind of went from there. But one of the main reasons that nothing was showing up for so long was because I was already eating gluten and dairy free. Because when I was a senior in high school, I got diagnosed with being allergic. And that is apparently the number one thing they tell people who have Hashimoto is to do that in order because your antibodies are more flared, I guess, when you are eating those things. So that is why I didn't show for so long.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, I feel like that's one of the things for any kind of like autoimmune, like hormonal situation. It's always like just remove gluten and dairy for 2 weeks and see how you feel, you know?
Yep.
It's
And I'm like,
like,
I'm already
you
doing
know,
that. So that's not,
yeah, that's not the problem.
yep.
So when you were going through like all of this, and kudos to you for speaking up for yourself and for your body and being like, hey, like something's not right. Like, don't just tell me that I'm fine, nothing's wrong. We've got to dig a little bit deeper here. Um, for autoimmune conditions in general, what misconceptions do you feel that people have about them, whether it's Hashimoto's, PCOS? I mean, there's several out there.
I think that it's like one size fits all is like a misconception people have that if you have this autoimmune or you have an autoimmune condition, you're going to feel this way. And I think what I've learned is that there isn't a one shoe fits all thing.
Mhm.
I think everyone with an autoimmune condition, kind of your body reacts differently to different things, different medicines, different ways of eating, whatever it is. And I think even doctors sometimes they're like, oh, but you don't have this, so it can't be that. But, and like not trying to shade any doctors, because again, my parents work in the medical field. It's just that I think there has to be more to it because my experience with Hashimoto might be very different than someone else's. And like I said, my levels weren't showing, like my thyroid is still, was still quote unquote working fine because of the way that I was fueling my body and eating, but I still had the antibodies, which were making me sick. Whereas someone else, most people have a thyroid issue going hand in hand with their Hashimoto. So mine looks different. And I just think that in general, we have to get away from one size fits all.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's like kind of, I know Hashimoto's and PCOS are different, but they're still similar in a lot of
Mhm.
ways. And that was the thing for me is like my PCOS diagnosis came from actual literal cysts on my ovaries. And I have the facial hairs, symptom, the insomnia symptom. I get the cystic acne, mostly around
Girl,
my
the cystic
cycle.
acne.
It's the worst.
I'm like, I'm 34 years old. Why is this still
Yeah.
happening? But I
Yeah,
digress.
it's frustrating. But I never had thyroid issues. So, it was always kind of like written off as like, well, it's not that serious of a PCOS. It's like, well, no, I've got a hormone issue, a
Yeah.
metabolic issue. Like, well, now PCOS is PMOS. But it's that same kind of frustration of just years and years and years and years of everything's fine, your labs look normal, like everything's perfect, blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay, well, like it's obviously not.
Well,
Like,
and then you start to believe like, okay, am I just like going crazy that I feel this way? Like
right.
it must be that I'm not hydrated, or it must be that I'm eating, I don't know. Like I
Yeah.
went through the whole rabbit hole of, am I just going crazy if these doctors are just telling me that I'm fine and no one's believing me that like I
Yeah.
don't feel well? Because I could never, like, even on a daily basis, I just like, I don't know what doesn't feel good. I just don't feel good. Like, but I'm like, is this just normal? Is this how everyone feels? Like, I don't know. And so I think that's just really hard sometimes when you don't even know how to explain the way that you're feeling. And when you say you're tired, everyone's like, yeah, well, everyone's tired. Well, okay, I get that, but this isn't like normal. This is
Right.
not a normal tired. I slept and I'm still very tired. I wake up every morning and could not wait to go back to bed.
Right.
I shouldn't
Yeah.
live that.
Yeah. No one should feel that way. So like for the person who's listening right now, what advice would you give to them who feels frustrated about their body, who feels like no one's listening, who feels like they know something's wrong, but like they're kind of getting gaslit to feeling like you were feeling?
Yeah, I think finding a like keep trying different doctors that will listen. And like if you know something's wrong, I think like start changing things yourself, even if you can't get into a doctor that will, I don't love having to be on a medicine or anything like that. Like, but I mean, hey, if it helps, it helps. But
Mhm.
even if you can't get into a doctor that's going to believe you with that, if you start changing your diet or whatever and find something else that works for you. So kind of when I was going through this, I've always eaten relatively healthy. Don't get me wrong, I love my sweet treats sometimes, but you know, but I've usually eaten pretty healthy, especially being allergic to gluten and dairy. There's just specific things I can't eat. But I shifted how much. So I was always eating like protein, a carb, and veggies at each meal or whatever. But I was probably having more carb than I needed and less protein because I always did like the fist method. Like they say that your
Mhm.
fist is the protein, and I was like, okay, fist, got it. But I shifted it to doing more protein. So now it's like 5 ounces at every meal about, and like less carbs. So it's only like 3 to 4 ounces of carbs. Whereas like my plate still has the same food on it. It's just different amounts. And very quickly I realized that my body was responding to that. Not that I don't eat carbs, because I do, I love carbs, but it's just eating less of them because I think whatever was going on, my body also couldn't process the carbs the way that they were supposed to in terms of like how I needed to function, but having the little shift helped a ton. Um,
Yeah.
so that was helpful too, just kind of trying different things on my own in the process of figuring it all out.
Yeah, yeah. So just now that we're on the kind of topic of that food and nutrition and finding what works. So you talked about just kind of going and dairy free, and you've done that since high school, right? That's
Yeah, so
when.
when I was in high school, my junior year is kind of when everything started. I was not feeling well. I was kind of seeing foggy in school. We had like these, we called them psych parties before big games, and it's like a pasta party. You're eating all this food. I would then be very ill the next day, like throwing up at school, but we thought it was nerves, that I was like nervous for the game. So we
Mm,
just like let it go. And my parents, again, work in the medical field. So either like you're dying or you're fine. There's no like, you might be sick for a little while. Now it's better. But back then it was kind of like, so we just thought it was nerves, a stress of picking a college, all of those things.
yeah.
And it was to the point though that like I was losing a lot of weight, but like eating a lot of food. And then on like Christmas and Thanksgiving, I was crying hysterically because my stomach hurt so bad, because it's a very carb, dairy heavy meal.
Day.
And
Yeah.
finally, my parents were like, well, you either have an eating disorder or something's wrong. And I was like, I don't have an eating disorder. Like, you see me eating, like those kind of things. And so they had scheduled me finally an appointment when I was in my senior year. And right before that, like probably 2 or 3 weeks, one of my friends was like, well, my cousin just got diagnosed with this gluten thing. And I was like, what's that? Like, it was before gluten was a thing. So it's
Right.
like, everyone is. And I was like, well, what's that? And she told me. And so I stopped eating it as best I could, like from what I knew for those 2 weeks leading up to the doctor. And I had never felt better. And then when I got to the doctor, they told me that I had to be eating it in order to test positive for celiac disease. And I said, I refuse to eat it just for you to tell me that I'm allergic to it. If in 2 weeks I feel like a different person from stopping
Right.
these two foods, like, I don't know what to tell you. And they're like, well, we can still test you. It's just not going to come out positive. So we can only say you have a high gluten intolerance. We can't officially say you have celiac disease, which is fine. Like, in my mind, ever since that day, I have never eaten it again unless a restaurant accidentally feeds me it. But and I, it changed everything for me. So it's been since, like 2009. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. And I have, like, people are like, well, don't you want to try it again since you grew into it? You could No, I don't. I have no desire to, because I just know how sick I was. And now, knowing
Right.
I have an autoimmune condition, like, it also just makes sense. If I had been eating it back then, maybe we would have found all these things then. But I just have no desire to. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So keeping on with the theme of like summer wellness without missing out. Like this is the time of year where there's lots of cookouts, there's lots
Yeah.
of, chips, there's lots of gluten and dairy right
Yeah.
around. So for the person who's interested in exploring, eliminating gluten and dairy, or they have to, like they've already been told like this is what they need to do. What are some ways that like you're still enjoying summer? I know people might like you could still enjoy summer without like gluten and dairy, but I know
Yeah.
some
Sure.
people have this like, well, what am I supposed to do? So what are some things that you do to, not feel like you're missing out, quote unquote, from summer foods?
Yeah. Well, if I know where I'm going, if it's a cookout, I typically, like, will ask beforehand, do you need me to bring anything? That way I
Mm.
know there's always one option that I can definitely eat. But typically, like, plain meat is always fine. Like, so if you're at a grill, like, you're going to be able to eat that just without the bun. And I don't even care about that part. Some people might, but there's a good gluten-free bread out there nowadays. Just bring your own. Um, I am a chip girly through and through. So I will always find that gluten-free chip. Tortilla chips are always a hit, even just like plain potato chips. But then there's things you have to watch out for if it's dairy. Like, for example, the Tostitos chips with lime have dairy in them for some reason. Would have never thought. But those are like little things you have to watch out for. But you can always eat a salad. You can always eat fruit. And I personally love those things. So for me, it's very easy to just like keep on going.
Hmm.
Um, whenever you're at a restaurant now, it's so friendly because there's usually a gluten-free menu, or
Hmm.
they have options or whatever it is. So you never really feel too, like, left out. Now every once in a while you might be like, oh, I really want that, but there's probably an alternative somewhere. So if you're here in Jack's, like, Mayday always has a dairy-free ice cream that you can get. Um, there's also brands like at the grocery store nowadays that are good. So there's always just options, and I never really feel too left out. I can't drink beer, but, like, I never got into drinking beer because I got diagnosed back in the day and
Before you were 21.
before I was 21. Now, I will say I would drink a beer when I was like in 18 to 20, whatever, and I would throw up, and people would
Yeah.
call me a one beer queer. Sorry if that's not, like, appropriate, but I was like, no, I just don't feel
This
good.
was this was sent back in early 2000s. So
This,
like back
yeah,
then, like
it was a long time ago. I didn't say it, people said it. Um,
Yeah.
but I just didn't feel good. It wasn't that I was drunk. I just didn't feel good. And now
Yeah.
I know it's because I can't drink beer. And there are gluten-free beers if you're a beer person and you're looking to stop having gluten. I personally just don't like them because I never learned to acquire the taste of beer.
Right.
But there are options, and I've had my husband, who loves beer, try them, and he says that they taste very similar to a regular beer. So if you are a beer drinker, there's options for that too. I like to put stuff in a Camelback if I'm going to an all day event and have my little drink in my Camelback. But
There you go. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think you like ciders, right? I know
yeah,
whenever we've been at like a beer place, like you're kind of grabbing the cider usually because that's the ciders are I would say
yep.
most of
Most
them, if
ciders
not
are
all of them,
gluten free.
are
Yep,
right on, right on.
ciders. I
So
like rum and Diet Coke. but
Yes.
skinny pirate, I don't know.
Very true, very true. What does a realistic day, just like in general, not necessarily have to be like summer vibes, but like of eating, what does that look like for you?
So I'm kind of a creature of habit when it comes to like breakfast and stuff, just because it's easy for me. So I make these like protein pancakes right now is like my what I've been doing for almost a year because it's very easy for
Yes.
me and I can sit down. And I know that it gives me enough protein to like start my day. So it's really just a banana, which, side note, being pregnant, we read somewhere that bananas help with morning sickness. And I've had banana every single morning of my pregnancy, and not one time have I, knock on wood, had morning sickness. So
There
just
you
a quick
go.
side note. So banana, one egg, some egg whites. Mine's 100 grams to be able to fit my protein, and oats. And you blend it up, and then it makes pancakes. And so I do that, and then usually like maybe some like turkey bacon or something just for a little extra protein, or just none of it if I'm not that hungry. And then I'll always have a snack midday, but because I'm a teacher or I'm out and about, I need it to be quick and easy. So I do Aloha bars, because they are a gluten and dairy free, pretty healthy bar that have like 14 grams of protein, which for a
Nice.
dairy free person is pretty good,
Yeah.
because a lot of times protein comes from whey, which we can't have.
Mhm.
But we also just found these other ones, the RX bars, but it's RX like
Oh,
I don't know what the
yes.
actual, it's like a new one that has more protein than the regular ones.
Yeah.
So we found
Yeah. I
those. So
love
those are
RX
good
bars.
too. Yeah. And then lunch is usually some version of like chicken with salad or veggies and just something in that realm, or
Mhm.
leftovers from the night before. And then dinner is usually again some sort of protein, a veggie, and a carb. And then like I'll snack a little here and there. Like I'll have like my fruit or whatever also. But that's pretty much how I eat throughout the day usually. Um,
Yeah. Like on, it's just like your default schedule.
yeah, that's the default.
Yeah. Well, I love how you talked about like keeping it simple and like eating the same thing, especially the banana pancakes, because you recently told me about these when I had the egg ache a few months
Yeah.
ago. And that it's literally become my breakfast every morning.
Yeah.
Like literally.
Like, and that the egg ick is so real. Like I started with eggs and then like just everyone's like, and I still eat them. Don't get me wrong. Like I'll make eggs and stuff,
Yeah.
but sometimes they just make my stomach like, it's like, I don't know, like upset a little bit if I eat them
Hmm.
too many days in a row. So I'm like, I need
Yeah.
something where there's still the egg in it so that I'm not just eating an egg and getting creeped
Yeah.
out by it.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I definitely like I'm so glad that and I so the first I would make the banana pancakes and not blend them together before putting it on the pan because I was just like I just wanted to do it quickly. And this past weekend I prepped them with like blending it together. Totally different ball game. Like
Yes.
totally different breakfast.
It's a whole
Makes
different
sense.
breakfast. So good.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I love how you talked about keeping it simple and just having like, kind of a default like routine that you kind of go towards regularly because I just posted about this recently on my stories about how I see so many like content creators or like wellness influencers post like this is the breakfast lineup for the week and they have something different every single week or every single day of the
Yeah.
week and all my mind goes to is A, how much are you spending on groceries? B, how much food are you wasting? Because like, how are you eating like venison for like breakfast? Like, like no shade to the creator I'm referencing, and I'm not even gonna say her name because I love her content. But like, let's be real. Like the normal everyday person who works a 9 to 5 or works, like you
Hmm.
own your own business, you really never stop working or has all these different side hustles like you like there's no time to like chef it up every single morning. So
No.
having something that you can like grab and go. The only thing I changed about my breakfast lately is like I do have cottage cheese and fruit with my breakfast and
Yep.
I'll switch up the fruit.
Yep.
Like and sometimes maybe I just don't put syrup on the pancakes. But
Yes.
like,
So I've been like, and I know this isn't necessarily like healthier, but I don't know. It's not healthier at all. But I use the sugar-free syrup right now just because I was like, I'm trying to do less calories. Not less calories, but like not get the extra calories from syrup. But then every once in a while, I'm like, this is probably not good for me because there's probably fake stuff in here. So I'll do the regular syrup. So I just kind of like
yeah.
bounce forth between that. Or like this morning I wanted some pineapple with it. So I had that. but it's just like a constant, like easy thing for me because I've gotten it down pat now. Like this morning I
Yeah.
went and worked out, got home by 7, had to be out the door by like 7:40. And so I had, before I left, I blended up the stuff. So all I had to do was like pour it on the pan and like let it cook while I start getting myself ready to leave. And I was out the door, you know, so it's very, yes, I'm cooking in the mornings because my husband on the other hand is like, how are you like, why are you cooking every morning? Like, shouldn't you just eat something like, but he has to be out the door by like 5:15. So his morning's a little different.
Yeah.
So he preps things in advance that he can just like heat up. So, but I'm
Yeah.
like, I have the time and I'm like, I like to have a calm morning before work. I don't like feeling frazzled. So
Mhm.
typically before work, like I get up a lot or like way earlier than like you need to get up for work, just so I can like sit and have my coffee and like make my
Take your time.
breakfast and start my day smoothly versus chaotic.
Yeah, no, I definitely aim to do that every day. But I some it just kind of depends on the morning for me, but I do like I'll cook in the mornings, but I sometimes will cook enough for the next day so I don't have to do it every single morning.
Good.
So that's been something that has worked for me. I wanted to kind of transition just real quick just to touch on because we talked about how you've run marathons, you do the high rocks, you do the yoga recovery. Um, I just to kind of like touch back on that for this part. Why do people underestimate that recovery portion? Because I feel like we talked about, everyone feels like, you know, they go this like all or nothing mindset and then they forget about the recovery part. They forget about the sleep that are all important factors. When you started to prioritize that in your fitness routine and your wellness, how did that change? Like what changed for you?
Honestly, it was hard to like add in a day of recovery was hard because I'm so used to like doing something every day. But then I realized like it doesn't, and again, this kind of goes with that all or nothing. It doesn't have to be nothing. It doesn't mean sit on your couch all day and literally do nothing. Now you can do that. That's fine too. But that just doesn't work for me because then I felt like I did literally nothing today. Like I didn't even
Mhm.
move. So whether that's take my dogs on a walk that day or play pickleball or like something that's still like movement, but not hard, like crushing yourself at the gym or something. And I think that like when I started giving myself a recovery day, it it gave me more progress in what I was actually looking to do, whether that was compete or lift heavier or whichever stage I'm at, like it gives me more growth in those things because I'm setting aside time for rest. Um,
Mhm.
and so I really think that being it, and it's hard to sit on a day. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. But again, it doesn't have to be absolutely nothing. And that's what I think I had to learn was that it can be something, just not your typical go to the gym, uh, run 12 miles, like whatever it is, you have to rest. And like when I was training for my marathon, I knew that a lot of marathon runners run 5 to 6 days a week. I personally cannot do that. My back would not handle that. It would be too much pounding and I would end up injured. So I was only really running maybe 3 days a week. So like in the week, it was 2 days. And then on the weekend, I would do my long run, maybe 3 to 4, depending on like where I was in my training. But I think and then on the other days, a couple days, I would go lift. But in that season of life, I was focusing more on the running improving than lifting, but I was still lifting 2 to 3 days a week. So I think shifting the mindset, but knowing your body is so important. Like some people's bodies may be able to, but I really think that having rest is so important. So like for me right now, it's Saturdays are typically a rest day for me because I teach yoga from 8 to 9 and then I don't go work out after. That way I can do a workout on Sunday. And if I do
Yeah.
work Saturday, then Sunday is my rest day. So I kind of use it like that.
Yeah, so you kind of plan ahead and figure out what's going to work for you and how your body's going to feel depending on what you want to do, what you got going on. I
Yeah.
love that. All right, so last thing we'll chat about, and then I'll let you go. um, but want to get back into this like to talk about now going into motherhood. So navigating this big life transition, newlywed, getting into motherhood, like how has that changed your perspective on health and how you think about it?
Yeah. So it's actually very interesting. Again, I have been blessed with a very great experience with pregnancy. So I I know this is not everyone's experience with pregnancy, but I'm just speaking from my own. But there have been studies that when you have an autoimmune condition, sometimes, specifically with Hashimoto's, I know that it puts it to rest while you are pregnant because your body is now focusing on building a human. So sometimes people with autoimmune conditions feel better when they are pregnant because their symptoms are put to rest, which has been the case for me. So I honestly feel more energized for the most part. And again, I know that could still change. I'm still, going, but I felt more energized and I've been able to like listen to my body better during pregnancy. So that's been an amazing thing. And what I've found and what I've like seen a little bit of is that you should, and what my doctor says is that I can continue doing the things that I was doing before getting pregnant, as long as there is no pain or nothing feels super weird or anything like that, because it's actually better for you to continue the things you were doing so that your body doesn't kind of not know what to do with this extra, I don't know, hormones and stuff, I guess.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I have been, and for me, being on a schedule is the most helpful thing. So I've just continued my normal um, fitness schedule for the most part. Um,
Hmm.
I'm maybe doing high rocks training once or twice a week instead of multiple, but still doing that. I'm still lifting 3 to 4 times a week. I still am at this point running, which is kind of really exciting. And it's only like 2 to 3 miles at a time, which I am totally fine with. I don't need to be going further than that. I know some people can, and that's amazing. I personally would rather lift than run. So I'm trying to find the balance
Right.
of
Yeah.
what feels good and how much. But for me, it's been a really cool experience because it's helped me listen to my body. And on certain days, like, okay, this doesn't feel good today, so I'm not going to do this. But I've been like, the only thing I've truly had to modify is like core work at this point. Um,
Right.
and my goals every day is to get between 8 and 12,000 steps. Uh, and that doesn't have to be running. That can just be walking. I take my dogs on walks a lot just to keep moving because like I said in the beginning, for me, movement is medicine and I feel better when I'm moving and it gives me a sense of self. Like I feel still like myself pregnant versus feeling like this whole body change.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a huge testament to the lifestyle that you built beforehand and to like, for other women who might feel like, oh, that could not be me. It could be you.
Yeah.
Like it really can be. Like you can still move. I think we're shifting away slowly but surely of this mindset that like pregnant women can't do things or they shouldn't do things. And
Yeah.
of course, I've never been pregnant. I have not experienced that yet, so I can't speak from experience with it. But like I feel like the people use pregnancy as an excuse
Yeah.
to just stop,
Yeah.
to stop all kinds of progress. And I love being around women, my gym, so many of my girlfriends who have had babies, and they had to slow down a little bit, but they did not stop. And I think
Yeah.
that's just so incredible.
And one of my friends told me, like, don't stop because it's harder to restart.
Hmm.
So like I just even like in the beginning when I was unsure of what really was going on, like I ran my high rocks in January and I was pregnant. So I just and I had to listen to my body. So like if the doctor told me if anything felt weird, I had to, stop and all that. But like I just kind of kept going with what I was used to so that it didn't feel any different. And obviously my trainers at my gym know that I'm pregnant. So if they think I need to modify something or they check me, like they're like, "Are you good?" I'm like, "Yes." But I think, like you said, a lot of people are shocked when pregnant women are still lifting or still whatever. And it's honestly kind of nice because they're so nice to you and everyone is so kind, all these things. It's really nice. But at the same time, I'm like, but did you know who I was before this? It's not like I
Mm,
just picked up lifting in the middle of
right.
pregnancy and I'm now squatting this amount. Like I was lifting beforehand and I just continued it on. And whenever it happens that I might not be able to lift as heavy anymore, that's fine. I won't. I'm not going to strain myself to, I
Hmm.
want a healthy pregnancy, I want a healthy baby. But if it feels good, I'm going to still do it. If it doesn't feel good, I'm not going to. And I think like the other thing that's been it's been a mind shift for me that I've been noticing is like body dysmorphia is so real. And like, there's been a few things in this sense that have like shifted. And I think like kind of one of the questions that you asked in the beginning was what, like, how has it shifted for you in the last few years? And I think the mind part has shifted a lot for me. And specifically now in this stage, I look back at pictures of myself, even from just like right before pregnancy. And I remember thinking, oh, on this day, I looked fluffy or I looked fat or whatever. And I'm like, what was wrong with me?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, why was I thinking that way? Because you don't look that way. And like, I think now,
Yeah.
especially that I'm having a baby girl, I don't want her to grow up in fear of her body. I want
Mm,
her to feel strong and empowered, and that like movement is good. Health looks different on everyone, but if you are healthy because you are treating your body correctly, then that is beautiful. Like, and it's just so interesting because like, and a friend has told me this before, that like it kind of shifts when you have kids because you don't want them thinking that way. But I was like, oh yeah. But now that I'm in that phase, I'm like, I don't want her growing up thinking like, oh, I looked fat in that picture, don't post it. And
yeah.
don't get me wrong, I still have like right now, I'm like, oh, don't get me from the side. But like Chris will be like, oh, but he's like, Karli, you are growing a human,
Yeah.
and so it is a
A
mind
literal
shift
human being.
too. Yeah. It's a mind shift for me, but it's also a mind shift in terms of like what I want for the future. And I
Right.
just want to like form a lifestyle of like being healthy, whatever that looks like. It can be any form of health, which is I think why I like so many different forms of movement. But it's also like, what are we fueling ourselves with and what are we telling ourselves? Because I
Right.
think that is the biggest form of like health, is like, what are we saying to ourselves? Because I can't even, with some of the pictures I've looked at, I'm like, and I specifically remember on some of those days being like, oh, why did I like, what was I wearing? Or why did I look like that? And I'm like, I don't,
Mhm.
and now I'm like, oh my gosh, I am beautiful. Like, you know what I mean? I am
Yeah.
beautiful. Like, why did I
Yeah.
think that one little bulge over here was a big deal? You can't even tell.
Yeah.
And like, so it's just an interesting shift because you put in all this hard work, but I think the mind is the biggest, shift.
Yeah, yeah. I could have a whole episode on body
Ooh,
dysmorphia
it's a tough
and
one.
and thinking things that you should not feel about yourself. And I'm sure my husband would love to butt in on that
Oh, same
episode
with mine.
as well.
Yep, same with mine. The day that I
Yeah.
no longer fit in my clothes, I had that was like my one meltdown day. I no longer fit. And he's like, Karli, you are building a human. We'll just get you new ones and you'll fit in
Yeah.
those. And I'm like, I know, but those were like my clothes that were big on me.
Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
different kind of big. A different kind of
Yeah.
big.
And, so that's just a whole other like health thing that I think a lot of people forget about, is like you can be so
Yeah.
fit, you can be eating so healthy, and a healthy is very relative because you might think you're eating healthy, but you're actually like not eating what your body needs. But then it's really
Mhm.
like what you're saying to yourself and
Yes.
how you're treating yourself. Like if I wouldn't say things to you as one of my best friends, like why am I okay with saying it to myself? And I
Right.
think that's something I've really been working on recently. And don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect with it. There's still things I say that like I shouldn't say that about myself. But I think that's like the biggest shift of health that I think a lot of women can probably work on.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. Well, before we close out, is there any final points or final things that you want to make sure that gets heard across this message of just kind of what we're talking about today and your journey and anything that you would love for a woman or anyone who would be listening to hear and take from today?
Yeah, I mean, I think my last thing is just like we were just talking about. It's not necessarily about like all the weights and the workouts and our performance or our appearance,
Mhm.
but it's about feeling well. And if you're doing all these things and you're not feeling well, you're not feeling healthy, then a change needs to be made, whether that's dialing it back on your workouts, whether that's fueling differently, whether that's working on the self-talk. I think just like feeling well is the most important thing. And I think we miss that a lot because our society is so appearance driven,
Right.
or performance driven, which are both things that like I also love. Like I love to perform at a high level and I love to
Yep.
feel like I look good. But at the same time, if I'm not feeling well internally, then it doesn't matter about those other things because my life is not where it should be. So I think getting yourself to a point where you can feel your best, then your performance and your appearance and all those things fall into place too.
Yeah. No, I love that. Love that. Well, thank you so much, Karli, for coming on the pod. I'm glad we finally got to sit down and do this. There's so many good nuggets in this episode already, just from talking to you. And I knew that there would be so many good takeaways from it. So thank you so much for being on.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. I hope that we can take some good things away from this.
Yeah, yeah. So I know that you like to post your traveling and your fitness and wellness journeys on the socials. So if you would like any of the listeners to give you a follow, how can they follow along?
You can find me on Instagram, the gram with it's Karli with a K and an I, Elizabeth, and then Nichols instead of
Oh yeah, yes. Yeah, okay, go give her a follow. Find some of those gluten-free recipes. Get
Yep.
some girl mom tips so that she'll be soon probably putting out
I'll
there.
be putting all the things, me and Dara send things to each other of like this little baby doing burpees. I'm like, I hope that's my baby.
Yes, yeah, it will be for
So
sure. But you're just gonna give birth, and she's gonna be like already signed up for her
already
first
doing
sign
it
up.
this week. Yeah, we're doing a high
Yeah.
rock for my sister.
Right on. Thanks, Karli, so much. Appreciate you being on the pod, and I will catch you guys on the next one.